जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तीर वनचारी। यमुना तीर वनचारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे। जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम। जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद जय श्रील प्रभुपाद। हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। So we did until the first 7 verses of the 13th chapter, right? Anybody remembers what was covered in these chapters, in these verses?
Bro, basically, Vidura came back to home when the war was finished. So they were receiving the Vidura after taking care of the basic necessities.
Yeah,
They are all sat together and started discussing.
correct.
So, as part of the discussion, we understood the what is the importance of Guru and why do we need a Guru. Then we understood that Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana.
Correct. So, sorry. Does anyone know what is Sambandha, what is Abhideya, and what is Prayojan?
So Sambandha is basically we want to know who am I and what is our relationship with the God and who is God. And Abhideya is basically how do I revive or re-establish relationship with the God.
Hmm.
Then by doing so, what is the prayojan, what is the benefit we are going to achieve? So
Correct. The objective, the final objective.
final objective. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And even Bhagavad Gita talks about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan also. So Sambandha is that we are his servants, right? And there is this verse in Bhagavad Gita. Anybody remembers? At least Rao Prabhu, you have done 15 chapter. So do you remember this verse? Coincidentally, it was
Mhm.
15.8 that was open, but it is 15.7. This
Uh-huh.
says, Mamai Mausho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. A very important verse, meaning it should be memorized as well, and one should know the meaning of it very well. So, Mamai Eva Amsha. Amsha is a fragment. a part, a portion. So he is saying mama eva amsho, my fragmental particles, jiva loke, within the current world, jiva bhuta sanatana, the eternal conditioned living entity. So what is saying that all these living entities, they are in this world and they are conditioned, meaning they behave in a particular manner only because that is how they have been meaning nurtured after taking birth, and they are my fragmental parts. This verse is one of those few verses in Bhagavad Gita which establishes our relationship with Krishna. There is one more verse also which talks about our relationship with material world also, which talks about which is the verse number 5 in 7th chapter, right? Aparam apare nitastwanya, I think. Sorry, 7.5 is it talks about the living entity as the another energy. अपरेयम इतस्त्वन्याम प्रकृतिम विद्धि में पराम जीव भूताम महाबाहो ययेदम धार्यते जगत. Oh, mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So that verse actually puts us in between Krishna and the material world. And this verse 15.7, it talks about we struggling with the conditioned world, the material energy, although we are fragmental parts of Krishna. So that is Sambandha. Abhideya is the process. So Bhagavad Gita talks about Bhakti Yoga as the process. In 6.47, that is the last verse of 6th chapter, and in the last verse of the 8th chapter, in the last verse of 11th chapter, the last two verses of 15th chapter, as well as the verse number 65 and 66 of 18th chapter. These all talk about the process. Meaning, if we have to surrender to Krishna, how should we surrender? Or if we have to follow this process, what should be the process? And Prayojan is the main objective, which Krishna talks about in many, many verses throughout Bhagavad Gita. But what happens now in Bhagavatam, Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke at a very basic, fundamental and summary level. He did not elaborate it. Now, there is a huge possibility, and which we now see it regularly as well. People find it very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita. So, because it is a kind of a compressed knowledge, it's always difficult to, understand the meanings of the verses in depth and then elaborate that meaning throughout all the other verses. It's not so simple. One of Prabhupada's disciples, Satswarup Das Goswami Prabhu, he studied Bhagavad Gita many hundreds and hundreds of times, and for 18 years he did that, after which he was able to understand it to the section level and the linking of the verses with each other, and after which we are understanding it. So he has written a book called as They Surrender Unto Me. And in this book, he has described the different sections within every chapter, which talks about from which verse to which verse, what section is there, what is Krishna trying to convey here, how is this linked with the previous section, how is it linked with the next section, how is it linked with the other verses of Bhagavad Gita. And when all of this is done, he gave a lot of lectures around it, and that is when people started understanding the linking of the verses. And that is after that it became simple to understand Prabhupada's purports. Prabhupada's purports are very deep, not at all simple to understand without multiple readings, multiple explanations. So if you see, if Prabhupada's purports are difficult to understand, imagine without them how difficult it would be to understand Sri Bhagavad Gita. Now for common people like you and me, if Bhagavad Gita, the Sanskrit version, without English or transliteration is given to us, we will probably not be able to understand. We will keep it aside, similar to the way we will keep a Chinese book aside. Yeah, we will not understand anything. At the most, what we will do is like a parrot, we will by heart the verses of Bhagavad Gita and speak about it, but that's not going to help. So that is where Srimad Bhagavatam came into picture. And the Sambandha, Abhidheya and Prayojan does exist in Srimad Bhagavatam also, and it is explained in multiple methods. One of the method which is more popular in general people is in the form of stories. So if you remember, especially in the childhood, we were taught that's a particular principle that one should not lie or one should not steal. So these are the principles. But when the parents taught us, we were not able to understand it, why we should not lie and what does lying mean, what are the drawbacks of lying, and what are the advantages of speaking truth. We were not able to understand. So they used to teach us with somebody's example as some story or something like that. Then we used to understand that because so and so person lied or stolen something, that's why he had so and so problem, and that's why it is not right to lie or steal. So because our maturity level, our knowledge level, intelligence level was low, that's why we were taught in the story form. That is why purposely Srimad Bhagavat has come for people like us to be and elaborate that concept to such a level that we will be able to understand. But otherwise, if you see it at a conclusion level, at a summary level, there is no difference between Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of the essence of both the scriptures. It both of them talk about Sambandha, Abhidheya, Prayojan. Both of them regard Krishna as the supreme, nobody equal to him, nobody above him. And both of them talk about Bhakti Yoga as the only method to approach Krishna. So this is in a nutshell about Sambandha, Abhidheya, Prayojan. Okay. So Uddhav Prashta Prabhu very beautifully he spoke about Guru's importance also, which Rao Prabhu also mentioned just now. So he completed the first 7 verses and the synopsis was given by Rao Prabhu. So let's start off with verse number 8 from today onwards. Now, one thing is when the war was confirmed that it will happen, Duryodhan insulted Vidur and he asked him to go away. So that way, Duryodhan had insulted Vidur many times before, but Vidur, because he loved and respected Hastinapur as well as Dhritarashtra very much, he used to tolerate those insults. But this time, and because of that tolerance, he never reacted through those insults by leaving Hastinapur permanently. But this time, by Krishna's will and Krishna's mercy, Duryodhan spoke something that Vidur decided now it's time to leave. So Duryodhan told him, you go away from Hastinapur. And he took that as the Lord's mercy and he went away. Now, what would a person like you and me do? We will give up everything. If we are a cowardly person, one will end up committing suicide. Or another person, may do something material activities. But Vidur didn't do that. Vidur went to the places of pilgrimage. Many places of pilgrimage are there. Vidur went to various of them. And in one of the, and he met Uddhav over there. You know who Uddhav is? Who is Uddhav?
He is a driver of God Krishna.
No, that is Daruka.
Oh, that is
Lord
Daruka.
Shri Krishna's chariot driver is named as Daruk.
Prabhu, he is friend of Krishna as well as he is in the family also of the Krishnas.
Yes, exactly. And there is one unique thing about Uddhav. Anybody knows? That way Krishna has many friends and many people in the family. But Uddhav was unique for 2 reasons. Any idea what they are? So one is he used to look almost exactly like Krishna. And the second one is he was one of the purest devotees of Krishna, completely surrendered to Krishna. So this person Uddhav, Vidur met him, and he started asking about Krishna and the relevant philosophy. But Krishna had spoken this philosophy to Uddhav just very recently, and Krishna had departed for his Goloka Vrindavan. Now that departure caused so much distress and agony to Uddhav that the moment the name Krishna used to even come in his mind or mouth, he used to cry tears continuously. So when Vidur came to him and talked about Krishna, Uddhav started crying. And when Vidur questioned him, Uddhav told him that I will not be able to speak, but you can approach Maitreya Muni. And to Maitreya Muni, I have spoken the same science, and Maitreya Muni will be able to explain him. So Vidur takes leave of Uddhav and then goes to Maitreya Muni, and then he asks the similar questions to Maitreya Muni. And then the dialogue between Maitreya Muni and Vidur is there in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Many chapters are spoken between both of these great personalities. And it is not mentioned here, anything has not been mentioned here, because Parikshit Maharaj specifically asks a question to Shukadev Goswami, and then Shukadev Goswami starts explaining the dialogue, what happened, what was spoken between Maitreya Muni and Vidur Muni, which comes in third canto. So when we reach that, we will do that. Now, we will move on to verse number 8. Okay. Yudhishthira uvacha api smaratha no yushmat pakshachaya samedhitan vipadganadvishagnya Gnader mochita yat samatrukaha. Translation, anybody?
As Yudhishthir said, "My uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? Your partiality, like the wings of the bird, saved us from poisoning and arson. Due to Pandu's death at an early age, his minor children and widow were the object of special care by all the elderly members of the family, especially Bhishma Dev and Mahatma Vidur. Vidur was more or less partial to the Pandavas due to their political position, although Dhritarashtra was equally careful for the minor children of Maharaj Pandu. He was one of the inquisiting parties who wanted to wash away the descendants of Pandu and replace them by raising his own sons to become the rulers of the kingdom. Mahatma Vidur could follow the intrigue of Dhritarashtra and company, and therefore, even though he was a faithful servitor of the eldest brother, Dhritarashtra, he did not like his political ambition for the sake of his own sons. He was therefore very careful about the protection of Pandavas and their widow mother. Thus, he was, so to speak, partial to the Pandavas, preferring them to the sons of Dhritarashtra, although both of them were equally affectionate in his ordinary eyes. He was equally affectionate to both the camps of nephews in the sense that he always chastised Duryodhan for his intriguing policy against his cousins. He always criticized his elder brother for his policy of encouragement to his sons, and at the same time, he was always alert in giving special protection to the Pandavas. All these different activities of Vidur within the palace politics made him well known as partial to the Pandavas. Maharaj Yudhishthir has referred to the past history of Vidur because he is going away from home for a prolonged pilgrim journey. Maharaj Yudhishthir reminded him that he was equally kind and partial to his grown-up nephews, even after the Battle of Kurukshetra, a great family disaster. Before the Battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra's policy was peaceful annihilation of his nephews, and therefore he ordered Purukona to build a house of lakh at Varanavra. And when the building was finished, Dhritarashtra desired that his brother's family lived there for some time. When the Pandavas were going there in the presence of all the members of the royal family, Vidur tactfully gave instructions to the Pandavas about the future plan of Dhritarashtra. This is specifically described in the Mahabharata, Adi Parv 144. He indirectly hinted even a weapon not made of steel or any other material element can be more than sharp enough to kill an enemy, and he who knows this is never killed. That is to say, he hinted that the party of the Pandavas was being sent to the Varnavrat to be killed, and thus he warned Yudhishthir to be very careful in their new residential palace. He also gave indications of fire and said the fire cannot extinguish the soul but can annihilate the material body. But one who protects the soul can live. Kunti could not follow such indirect conversations between Yudhishthir and Vidur, and thus, when she inquired from her son about the purport of the conversation, Yudhishthir replied that from the talks of Vidur, it was understood that there was a hint of fire in the house where they are proceeding. Later on, Vidur came in disguise to the Pandavas and informed them that the housekeeper was going to set fire to the house on the 14th night of the waning moon. It was an intrigue of Dhritarashtra that the Pandavas might die altogether with their mother. And by his warning, the Pandavas escaped through a tunnel underneath the earth, so that their escape was also unknown to Dhritarashtra. So much so that after sitting the fire, the Kauravas were so certain of the death of the Pandavas that Dhritarashtra performed the last rite of the dead with great cheerfulness. After and during the morning period of the members of the palace became overwhelmed with lamentation, but Vidu did not become so because of his knowledge of that the Pandavas were alive somewhere. There are many such instances of calamities, and in each of them Vidur gave protection to the Pandavas on one hand, and on the other he tried to restrain his brother Dhritarashtra from such intruding policy. Therefore, he was always partial to the Pandavas, just as the bird protects its eggs by his wings. Hare Krishna.
Jai. So actually the purport is so very nicely written and so self-explanatory. So we understand here that okay, prior going there, we spoke about it, right? Does anyone know who is Vidur? Who is Vidur?
Vidur is the youngest brother of these Dhritarashtra and Pandu.
Maharaj.
That is in the current life, but who is Vidur originally?
Vidur is otherwise Yamraj.
Yes, correct. And that that incident where he was cursed also was explained, I think, by Jai Govind Prabhu, right? That
Yes,
Manduka
yes.
Rishi and all that, and it was there in one of the purports also. So now he in the 5th or 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where the incident about Yamraj or Yamadutas trying to take away the Brahman, whose name is this one. What's the name of that Brahman? Who's sinful Brahman? Sorry, memory is not present. So there is this person, a Brahman, who was doing his bhakti quite well, but he fell down and he started performing sinful activities. And at the end of his life, the Yamadutas came to take him away, but the Vishnudutas also came, and they told him that no, you cannot take him because he has uttered the name of Narayan, although not intentionally, at the end of his life. So you can't take him away. And
Is
that is
it not Ajamil?
Ajamil, yeah. So, thank you. So Ajamil was that sinful Brahman. So when Yamadutas go to Yamraj, they tell Yamraj that so far we used to think that you are the supreme. There is nobody above you. You are the person who can frame rules and people have to abide by the rules. But now we came to know that you are not the supreme. Instead, there is somebody else as a supreme who disallowed us to take it away, saying that somebody else name was uttered and his law is more powerful than your law. So can you please guide us on what exactly this is? So then Yamaraj spoke quite a few things there. He talked about himself. He said that there are 12 Mahajans. These 12 Mahajans include Brahma, Shiva, Narad Muni, Prahlad, Bhishma Dev, then Hanuman, and so, himself, Yamaraj, Kapil Muni, Kruthu Maharaj. So very many different things are people were there. So he's saying that all of these are Mahajans, and only we know the truth because we heard it directly from the Lord or his direct representative. That Yamaraj. Okay, now it is obvious, right? We in the Hindi movies, especially, whenever you see Yamaraj, what is the kind of face that comes in front of you? Somebody, they will show Yamaraj with, horns and all that, right? Something like that, or some dark character, a wicked character, somebody who derives sadistic pleasure from punishing people, something like that. But some negative portrayal happens. Why? Because these people, they have not understood the scriptures properly, they have not read it properly, they have not understood from the parampara properly. So when they project Yamraj negatively, that doesn't mean Yamraj is a negative person. How we will look at the Supreme Chief Justice of Supreme Court, he has to understand the law completely well so that he can do justice properly. Right? Yamraj is similar person who understands Krishna's law perfectly well. He understands scriptures perfectly, because of which he knows what is right, what is wrong. What should be the punishment of wrong? What should be the reward of right? And whenever a person does wrong and is brought into Yamalok, then the justice is given by Yamraj. That Yamraj has complete knowledge. This Yamraj is Vidur himself. This Vidur also brings the same knowledge down. And because of which he understands what Dhritarashtra is doing is incorrect, what Pandavas are doing is right. And in order to protect the principles, the religious principles, he is supporting the Pandavas. And he is also trying to avoid Dhritarashtra by committing these mistakes by giving him good advice. And whenever this good advice is not sufficient, then he, uh, does activities which will destroy the plan of Dhritarashtra. So in the B.R. Chopra's Mahabharata, it is shown as if Duryodhan plotted everything and Dhritarashtra was, unaware of what is happening. But that is not the case. We understand from Mahabharata, we understand from what Prabhupada translates it here, that Dhritarashtra was the person who, plotted all of this to ensure this happens. And he used to get these things done via Duryodhan and Shakuni, kind of these people. And so much, Vidur was so much, conscious about speaking or not speaking something, that we will see two incidents. One which will come in today's one of the verses, and one was related with what Prabhupada has written in the purport. Vidur did not inform even Bhishma Dev also that the Pandavas were alive. Okay, why? Because if for some reason, by words or by body language, if Bhishma Dev communicates that the Pandavas were alive, then it can spoil the whole plan. That's why Vidur did not communicate even to Bhishma about their, meaning, successfully leaving the Varanavat, the palace of lac. So the point here is to not give any hint to Duryodhan and people that we have understood your plan and we will spoil that plan. Vidur did not speak directly to Yudhishthir also about this. But Yudhishthir, being the son of Yamraj himself, that means he is the son of Vidur, directly, indirectly, however we relate it. He also carries huge amount of knowledge. That's why he was able to understand the intricate words of Vidur, which unfortunately Kunti Mata could not understand. Hare Krishna. So we all know this story, so I'll not go further deeper into it. We can move on to verse number 9. Any question on the previous verse? No? Okay. Kaya vrutya vartitam vash charadbhikshiti mandalam tirthani kshetra mukhyani sevitani ha bhutale. Translation, anybody?
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Vidur went out from the palace to detach himself from household affairs, especially political intrigues. As referred to herein before, he was practically insulted by Duryodhans, calling him a son of the Sudrant.
Shudrani.
Shudrani. Okay. Although it was not out of place to talk lonely in case of one's grandmother, Vidur's mother, although a Sudrani, was the grandmother of Duryodhana, and funny talks are sometimes allowed between grandmother and grandchildren. But because the remarks was an actual fact, it was unpalatable talk to Vidur, and it was accepted as a direct insult. He therefore decided to quit his parental house and prepare for the renounced order of life. The preparatory stage is called Vanaprasthana Ashrama, or retired life for traveling and visiting the holy places and the surface of the earth. In the holy place of India, like Vrindavan, Haridwar, Jagannath, Puri, and Pragya,
Prayag.
there are many great devotees, and there are still free kitchen houses for persons who desire to advance spirituality. Maharaj Yudhishthira was inquisitive to learn whether Vidur maintained himself by the mercy of the free kitchen house Chatras.
Yeah. We used to have Dharmashala before and Chhatrashala also before, right? Chhatra was the free kitchen house. Now, here, if you see, Vanaprastha ashram is mentioned here as Vidur prepares himself and is proceeding on the subsequent portion of the spiritual life. Now, any idea what is Vanaprastha ashram and why is it important?
Prabhu, it from 50 to 75 years of age is considered as a Vanaprastha ashram, so that you can start preparing yourself for the living alone or taking sannyas after 75.
Yeah.
This I understand. Anything beyond this, I think you can guide.
Okay. So now 50 to 75 is mentioned because in Kali Yuga, the assumption is, especially in the current times, that a person will live for 100 years. But this is just an assumption. As time goes by, in Kali Yuga, people will have reduced shortened lives. Now, whenever a person lives for 100 years, we consider him to be, it's like an amazing stuff for us, or he is considered to be a burden as well by the society. Yeah. Now, so basically, it is the, if you divide the life, average expected life into 4 parts, the third part of life is expected to be lived as a in the Vanaprastha ashram. Why is that important? Because whenever we move onwards spiritually, we do that in a gradual manner. Okay, so and majority of the people will not be able to accept the teachings of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and apply in their own life in on an immediate basis. Tomorrow, meaning today after learning, if you realize that you have to chant 16 rounds on a daily basis, or get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, have a cold water bath, and do all your sadhana and everything and all that properly, you'll find it difficult. That is why gradually things are introduced and people start applying it. So Vanaprasthashram is also a similar stage. The expectation that from a person who has lived for around one-fourth of his life in the Gruhasthashram aspect, if he moves on to the sannyas ashram, it will be very difficult for him to go there directly. Why? Because while in the Grihastha stage, he was dependent on his family. His wife used to cook food for him, or his wife, or his, what do you say, or his children used to, serve him, considering that now he started becoming old, or, he is dependent on the money provided by his employer, or whatever it is, right? So, after being dependent on so many things, if you have to live a life in the sannyas ashram, who is dependent only on the mercy of the Lord and nothing materially, it's very difficult. So that is why Vanaprasthashram comes into picture, wherein a person starts reducing these dependencies, starts reducing the material requirements gradually, and comes to a stage that yes, now he is ready to go into the sannyas ashram stage. Even within sannyas ashram also, there are 4 stages. The first one is Kutichak, then is Bahudhak, then Paramhamsa, and then Parivrajaka. So Kutichak meaning this person stays outside the house but within the same village. And at this time, his family provides him food and clothing for his maintenance. Bahudhak stage is the person stays outside his current village where his family is staying, and he is dependent on the other villagers to provide him food and clothing so that he can survive himself. Paramhamsa means he has crossed that stage and he is focused fully on thinking about the Lord. And Parivrajaka stage is when he roams around village after village after village and preaches the holy name of the Lord. So there also you will see it is a gradual stuff. Krishna did not come up with these rules and these guidelines in a whimsical manner. A nice scientific detailed thought process has gone in to come up with these framework, so that the objective of creating the material world, which is to help one enjoy himself and as well go back to the spiritual world, this objective can be achieved. The failure happens when people like we think that this whole material world is existing only for our enjoyment and nothing else. The purpose of human life is only to enjoy the body and nothing else. When we understand that the enjoyment is temporary and one has to try and minimize his desires and necessities and focus on the spiritual life, and whatever desires he is unable to give up, he can enjoy that many and just basically focus on the spiritual life as much possible. So when we understand that this is like a curve, we are taking a dip and then we have to go back again. So this curve, as low as possible it should be. Sometimes in some people, the curve never stops. It just goes down and down and down. They never tend to go upwards. So this is that is where the varnashram dharma comes into picture, that it allows you to enjoy senses within a regulated guideline framework, and also helps you go back to Krishna. That is about meaning. That is why vanaprasthashram exists. I'll not go into other points because it's very obvious. Shudrani meaning the wife of a Shudra. Okay, 10th verse. Bhavadvidha Bhagavatas Tirthabhuta Swayam Vibho Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani Swantah Sthena Gadabhrutam. A very important verse. This one is. Translation. Who's reading?
I'll read, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Translation. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Purport. The personality of Godhead is omnipresent by its diverse potentials everywhere, just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space. Similarly, the Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just as electricity is manifested in an electric bulb. A pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of the Lord and the Lord in everything. The holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousness of the human being by an atmosphere surcharged with the presence of the Lord's unalloyed devotees. If anyone visits a holy place, he must search out the pure devotees residing in such holy places, take lessons from them, try to apply such instructions in practical life, and thus gradually prepare oneself for the ultimate salvation, going back to Godhead. To go to some holy place of To go to some holy place of pilgrimage does not mean only to take a bath in the Ganges or Yamuna or to visit the temples situated in those places. One should also find representatives of Vidura who have no desire in life save and except to serve the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead is always such pure devotees because of their unalloyed service, which is without any tinge of fruitive action or utopian speculation. They are in actual service of the Lord, specifically by the process of hearing and chanting. The pure devotees hear from the authorities and chant, sing, and write of the glories of the Lord. Mahamuni Vyasadeva heard from Narada, and then he chanted in writing. Sukadeva Goswami studied from his Lord, from his father, and he described it to Parikshit. This is the way of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, by their actions and pure devotees of the Lord can render any place into a place of pilgrimage, and the holy places are worth the name only on their account. Such pure devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere of any place, and what to speak of a holy place rendered unholy by the questionable actions of interested persons who try to adopt a professional life at the cost of the reputation of a holy place. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Amazing purport. I mean, covers so many different perspectives here. I'm not sure if you would have seen, but some time back, a video had become viral, and a group of college going kids, 18, 20 odd years, 20, 25 years of age. They were performed, they performed a dance in one of the Vrindavan temples in those verandas, the corridors, and they filmed it and they made it viral. And this dance was on some Bollywood movie song. And then obviously the questions, people were asking, what are you guys doing? Do you understand this is a temple? What are you supposed to do? What are you doing? And all that. Now compare this current state of our culture, which, especially the young people, not aware of how they are supposed to honor and behave in temples, and compare that with the purport that Prabhupada has written. So you feel that dancing on some Bollywood movie song with weird moves, meaning it's not just dance was there, but it's weird and provocative moves were there in the dance. And you think that this is how you should behave in a temple. Let alone temple, Prabhupada or this verse talks about the whole dham, the whole place, not just one temple in that area. And what is he saying? That the dham gets its importance not just because the Lord appeared over there, but the importance continues because of another factor. Okay, so I can say that, okay, fine, Lord Krishna appeared in Vrindavan, and that's why Vrindavan has its importance. No doubt about it. Vrindavan has and will continue to have the importance because Lord was there and he did all his pastimes over there. But the point is, who told you all of this? Lord did all of this 5,000 years back. Fine, it is there in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. But when one goes to such a place, because the Lord was there, it is the people who over there who are actually living these pastimes of the Lord, and they are communicating this to various people. That is why the general public is able to understand what is happening. There are, meaning, forget the rest of the world, but in India, there are 1.4 billion people. Majority of the people would not even know the name Vrindavan. Whoever knows it, they wouldn't know the Mahima of Vrindavan. Whoever knows the Mahima of Vrindavan, they wouldn't know that it is, all of this is mentioned in Bhagavatam or other Puranas or other scriptures. But majority of them would know about this Mahima only because people who have either visited Vrindavan or people who are residing in Vrindavan, they are the ones who are cascading this information to various people. And that is what this verse all talks about, because devotees like Vidur, they are these holy places personified, because they go to different places. Those places become places of pilgrimage. The presence of a saintly person makes that place important. It is not that the place is important even before that saintly person appeared over there. Today in Maharashtra, the birthplace of Tukaram Maharaj, Alandi, or Dehu, where Jnaneshwar was there. Yeah, these people, or Pandharpur, where Lord Vitthal is there. All these places did not have that same importance before the appearance of these great people, personalities, and the Lord. They got the importance only because these people appeared over there. What Yudhishthir Maharaj is doing is going one step forward to say that when people like Vidur visit all these places also become places of pilgrimage. And this is such a strong statement, actually. If Narendra Modi comes and visits your house, people will know your house only because Narendra Modi visited here. Yeah, so everybody will say ki so and so person stays in so and so building, and this building is that building where Narendra Modi visited. So the building is known by the person who visits that building. Similarly, these places, they get importance and they are recognized as places of pilgrimage only because people like Vidur visit such places. That's why Yudhishthir Maharaj is appreciating him, that your mere visit to a particular place makes that place a place of pilgrimage. But what is so great about that person that his mere visit can turn a place into a pilgrimage? That is, the answer is here. Because you carry the personality of Godhead in your heart. Very important point. So then the obvious question can come up. Yeah, the Lord is in the heart of every living entity. Sarvasya chaham hrudi sannivishto. He is in the heart of every living entity. So why is it that when I visit a place, it doesn't become pilgrimage? Where Vidur visits, it becomes a place of pilgrimage. So the answer is here. The Lord's omnipresence and is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidur. The Lord is present, but we have completely ignored him. He is in our heart, but we have ignored him. Whenever he guides us, he Baba, do some chanting, do some reading, read some lectures on Bhagavad Gita. Don't do this. This is sinful. Do it. Do this. It is right. This is towards bhakti and all that. What do? We shut off that voice from inside. We saying no. My activity, which is driven by my lust, is more important for me to satisfy than your instructions. You keep quiet. This is what we tell the Lord inside. Whereas people like Vidur, then they perceive the presence of the Lord in their heart and they manifest it with their unalloyed devotion also. So it is, I know the Lord is in my heart, I ignore it. The next stage is, I know the Lord in my heart, I'm hearing this instruction. The other one is, yes, I know the Lord is in my heart, he's giving me instruction and I'm obeying and I'm displaying to others as well so that they can also follow the instruction. That is the difference between people like Vidur and normal devotees. Hare Krishna. Then another perspective is, wherein when people go to such places of pilgrimage, their objective is, okay, यहाँ पे so and so mandir is there, वहाँ पे darshan लेना है, and that's all, come back. Yeah, but that is not the only thing. We have to visit the devotees of the Lord. We have to take their blessings. We have to serve them. We have to hear from them, take instructions from them, and apply those instructions in our practical life. That is when we actually make the best use of visiting that dham. Of course, not visiting the dham is worse. Visiting the dham is better. Even if it means that we cannot take instructions or visit people, but on an ideal basis, visiting a dham should involve not just taking darshan of the Lord, but visiting the pure devotees also and taking instructions from them. People have a tendency to say, okay, fine, गंगा में जाऊंगा, मैं नहा के आऊंगा, मेरे पाप धुल जाएंगे. Yeah, but पाप dhona, washing away the sins, is not the only objective of visiting the dham. It is good. It is the meaning, washing away the sins is good because it acts as a catalyst towards your path to devotional service. But that is not the only thing. The best way is to eradicate the mentality which caused the sin, which is the Harinam Sankirtan and serving the devotees of the Lord. That is what is being highlighted via this particular verse. Hare Krishna. We'll go to verse 11. Any question around this?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Mataji.
It's written here that Prayagraj also is a destination as a pilgrimage.
Yes. Yeah.
Why it is? Because there is only Ganga Yamuna. What else is there for, as it is said, as a
So Prayag
pilgrimage?
has a lot of importance. In the Garga Samhita, it is mentioned that it is the king of all holy places.
Okay.
Prayag. Okay. And Garga Samhita talks a lot about it, but in a nutshell, there is this small incident where Prayag, the personification of Prayag as a person, he was quite puffed up. It is completely unrelated with the topic, so I'll not go deeper into it. So he was puffed up and he was thinking that I am the king of holy places. And that is where the Mahima of Vrindavan was spoken about. But Prayag is considered to be the king of holy places. It is the place where majority of the small places or sites within that pilgrimage are there. So firstly, it's not Ganga and Yamuna alone, but Ganga, Yamuna and Mandakini. all three rivers come and meet each other at Prayag. And the color of the water of these three rivers is also distinct. And at a certain point of time, certain place, if you stand, you will be able to see the three different colors and how they are meeting with each other also. So that is one. Ram had visited Prayag, Krishna visited Prayag, and various saintly people, rishis, munis, and all performed their activities also in Prayag. So it carries a lot of importance.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So verse number 11. Apinah suhrudasta tatha tat bandhavaha Krishna devataha drushta shruta va yadavah swapuryam sukhamasate. Translation and purport. Who's
Hare
reading?
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Sorry. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ji. Jai Srila
Right,
Prabhupada ji.
Prabhu.
My uncle, you must have visited Dwarka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes? Purport. The particular word Krishna Devata, that is, those who are always wrapped in the service of Lord Krishna, is significant. The Yadavas and Pandavas, who were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his different transcendental activities, were all pure devotees of the Lord like Vidura. Vidura left home in order to devote himself completely to the service of the Lord, but the Pandavas and the Yadavas were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna. Thus, there is no difference in their pure devotional qualities, either remaining at home or leaving home. The real qualification of pure devotee is to become wrapped in the thought of Krishna favorably, that is, knowing well that Lord Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead. Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupal, and other demons like them were also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna, but they were absorbed in a different way, namely unfavorably, or thinking him to be a powerful man only. Therefore, Kamsa and Shishupal are not on the same level as pure devotees like Vidura, the Pandavas, and the Yadavas. Maharaj Yudhishthir was also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his associates at Dwarka. Otherwise, he could not have asked all about them from Vidur Maharaj. Maharaj Yudhishthir was therefore on the same level of devotion as Vidura, although engaged in the state affairs of the kingdom of the world. Hare Krishna.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So another point where we say that, a devotee of the Lord is always continuously thinking about the Lord. Another verse which, emphasizes this point. Now, uh, when the 9 processes of devotional service are talked about, so Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam comes next. So what happens is, first you hear about the Lord, then you speak about the Lord, and then you continuously think about it. That is the Smaranam aspect. So when you are not hearing or you are not speaking, the mind is working, and that mind should be engaged in the thoughts about Krishna. So when the thoughts of Krishna, meaning absorb you completely and take the majority of your time of your day, then that is when we can say that, okay, fine, we are in, focusing more on Krishna and less on the material aspect. Pandavas were like that. The Pandavas constantly thought about Krishna. And one example that is given is about Arjun. I'm not sure about the background of this one, but in Mahabharat, there was some thing that had happened when Arjun's devotion to Krishna was questioned, and somebody said that, let's see what Arjun is doing now. So they reach up to Arjun and they saw that Arjun is sleeping. And they thought, okay, see, Arjun is sleeping. That means he is not thinking about Krishna. So just as they were about to exit his room, they could hear some murmuring sound was coming. So they were looking around, who is there, where is this sound coming from? And they were not able to find anybody. And then when they start walking in the direction of the sound, then they could see that the sound is coming from Arjuna's mouth. So despite Arjun sleeping properly, he was still chanting the name of Krishna, 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 and that was going on. That is when they understood why Krishna is with Arjun so much more than others. That is because Arjun constantly chants Krishna and thinks about Krishna. There is another example which is about one saint from Maharashtra. His name is Namdev. Okay, so when Namdev left his body, he was a hardcore devotee of Lord Vitthal. So much that Lord Vitthal used to speak to him on a regular basis. You can imagine, speak to him on a regular basis. And, Namdev was given a task of translating Bhagavad Gita and talking about the glories of Lord Vitthal in the language simple for people to understand. Namdev started off but was not able to complete the task, and because of his old age. So Namdev was talking to Lord Vitthal and he was telling the Lord to give him a promise, meaning Lord Vitthal should give a promise to Namdev that he will get this task completed by someone else because Namdev is not able to do it. You can imagine the devotion, you can imagine how much importance is being given to serve the Lord, that his instruction, when you are unable to fulfill it, you feel so bad that you don't mind taking a promise from the Lord that he will get it done by someone else. This is just an amazing level of devotion. So this is the level of devotion he had, and then the Lord gave him a promise that yes, I will get it done from Ekanath. So another saint was there, Ekanath, and Ekanath wrote the translation of Bhagavat. So Ekanathi Bhagavat is there. So such a person, Namdev, he used to constantly chant the name of Lord Vitthal. So when he passed away, his body was cremated. There was one person who could not come for the cremation, for the last rites. So he went to the crematorium and he asked that person over there, can you tell me where is Namdev's the bones and ashes? I want to take them. So this person said, on that particular day, many people were burnt, and I will not be able to tell you that this is the bone of Namdev and this is of somebody else. So he said, don't worry, you just tell me which place was he burnt. I will find out which is Namdev's bones and ashes. So he directed him to that place. And then this person went over there and he started picking up every bone. And, he used to take the bone and bring it to his ear and then keep it down. And this person was looking at him and he was wondering, what is he doing? So then after few attempts, he picked up a bone and he could hear something, and then he kept it in his bag. So this person asked him, what are you doing exactly? He said, all the other people, they are normal people. But Namdev is a pure devotee of the Lord. He was constantly chanting the name of Lord Vitthal. So I'm 100% sure that the bones are also chanting the name of the Lord Vitthal. So he's saying, I'm picking up every bone to find out which bone is actually having that sound, the name of Lord Vitthal, who's chanting. And I could see these few bones are there. These are Namdev's bones. And then I'm picking them up. You can imagine that level of devotion which is there, despite the body is lost completely, still the bones have that, Lord, the name of Lord Vitthal is coming out. And that is that wrapped in the service of Lord Krishna, the Krishna Devata. That is that significance of the word. Hare Krishna. The point about Kamsa, Jarasan, Shishupal is specifically mentioned that because we should understand that the definition of bhakti is anyabhilashita shunyam, and it is also tatparat anyabhilashita shunyam, and it says that it should be a favorable service done to the Lord. So, remembering the Lord in a favorable manner is important. Just that remembering the Lord is not sufficient. It has to be in a favorable manner. So we also think about our bosses, right? Our managers quite regularly, but we definitely don't think them in a positive manner. But here, Kamsa was constantly thinking about Krishna. He was not able to eat, sleep properly. Hare Krishna, somebody has kept his mic open. Sushil Prabhu, I'm muting you. So Kamsa was constantly thinking about Krishna, but that was in an unfavorable manner because he wanted to kill Krishna. Devotees think about Krishna in a favorable manner. Hare Krishna. इत्युक्तो धर्मराजेन सर्वं तत्समवर्णयत् यथानुभूतं क्रमशो विना यदुकुलक्षयम्. Translation.
Thus, being questioned by Maharaj Yudhishthira, Mahatma Vidur gradually described everything he had personally experienced, except news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty.
Now, we will know why he did not talk about the annihilation of Yadu dynasty. That is talked about in the next verse. But what is the sequence of events that had happened? So Duryodhan, after insulting Vidur, then Vidur leaves. Then the battle of Kurukshetra happens. Then Krishna spends a good amount of time. We saw that, right? In Hastinapur for many months, he spends the time, and then he departs. At the time of departure, Yudhishthir tells him again to stay back, and Krishna again stays back for some more time, and then finally he departs. Then he goes to Dwarka. After that, a lot of things happen, okay, which is there in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Sambha is the name of the son of Krishna. He performs certain activities because of which he gets a curse from a certain sage, certain rishi, that your action is going to cause destruction of the Yadu dynasty, which is what Krishna wanted to happen because of reasons mentioned in the 10th canto. I will not go into it now. So when that happens, then the mace, she basically actually wraps himself in a sari, and he keeps a mace, gada, iron ka jo gada hota hai na, mace, iron mace, on the stomach, and he wraps it around the sari. And those 2-3 boys along with Shamba, they go to a particular Muni and ask them what will this lady have, whether it's a son or a girl, a daughter. So the Rishi understands, and then he says that you are fooling around with sages, and this action of yours will become the cause of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. So they get scared, and what they do is they crush that mace into small granular powder, and then still a very small piece remains, and they throw that powder in the river, and that small piece of iron is swallowed by a fish. Then that fish is cut by a certain person, and then that fish is then consumed, that piece is consumed, that becomes poison, and it becomes kind of poison. It becomes something like a drink also, because of which people become intoxicated, and under that intoxication they fight with each other, they kill each other, and this is all happening within Yadu dynasty. And all of this was going to happen, meaning had happened, and after which, or even before that, sorry, one point I forgot. Then Krishna spoke Uddhav Gita, and Uddhav Gita was very long. Then after that, Uddhav, he gives a message to Uddhav to give it to the people of Yadu dynasty to do various activities in Prabhas Kshetra, that is in and around Prayagraj. And after that, the destruction of Yadu dynasty happens. After that time, Vidur later comes back. So quite a lot of time has elapsed between these two events of Vidur going out and coming back. And now that he is coming, he knows that Yadu dynasty has now got destroyed, but he purposely does not tell them. And why? That we will see in the next verse. Verse number 13. Nanva priyam durvishaham nrunam swayamupasthitam navedayat sa karuno dukhitan drashtumakshamaha. Translation?
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
A compassionate Mahatma Vidura could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident because calamities come of their own accord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. According to Niti Shastra, according to Niti Shastra, civic laws, one should not speak an unpalatable truth to cause distress to others. Distress comes upon us in its own way by the laws of nature. So one should not aggravate in the propaganda. For a compassionate soul like Vidura, especially in his dealings with the beloved Pandavas, it was almost impossible to disclose an unpalatable piece of news like the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. Therefore, he purposefully refrained from it.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So now here we come to know about the reason why Vidur did not highlight. So there are two reasons. One is he knew if this is told, then they will be distressed, and he could not see such a distress. Meaning Pandavas in a distress situation. That is one. And he also knew that these kind of news, they come automatically without you taking extra, efforts to communicate it. So there is no need for that. And Vidur was a perfect person in terms of how to behave and how not to behave. So he always knew that causing distress to a person, if that is not the objective, then truth also should not be spoken if it causes some kind of distress. So I will speak the truth only if it is good for you to hear. Unless I have an objective to hurt you, then I will speak the truth in an unpalatable manner. But which was definitely not the case with Vidur. So his objective was to not hurt them. So then why to speak of some truth which is anyway going to come to them after a certain amount of time and in its own manner? Why should I put them in the distressful situation now itself? And we will see in this chapter and even in the next also, we will see that Yudhishthir starts seeing signs of he sees bad omen basically, wherein generally certain things indicate auspiciousness and certain things indicate, meaning coming bad events which are going to come up. So people who understand these signs well, they understand it. What is it that a particular sign is communicating? And Yudhishthir started seeing bad omens. So he could understand that something wrong has either happened or is about to happen. And then he realizes that, I think, something wrong has happened. And he sends Arjun as well, to take, know about Krishna and how is he and all that. And at that time, Arjun returns and he tells him that Krishna has departed. So they come to know about this anyway, which Vidur also says that fine, anyway, you are going to come to know in some or the other manner. There's no need for me to speak something which will cause distress to you. Okay, there is no need for you to know about it now. So that's why Vidur did not tell them. Hare Krishna. We'll take this 14th verse, which is the last verse for today. Any questions so far? No? Okay, let's move on. Kanchit kalam athavatsid satkruto devavat sukham bhratrur jeshthasya shreyaskrut sarvesham sukhamavahan. Translation?
Hare Krishna. Translation.
Yeah.
Thus, Mahatma Vidura, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother and in this way bring happiness to all the others. Purport. Saintly persons like Vidura must be treated as well as denizens from heaven. In those days, denizens of heavenly planets used to visit homes like that of Maharaja Yudhishthira, and sometimes persons like Arjuna and others used to visit higher planets. Narada is a spaceman who can travel unrestrictedly, not only within the material universe but also in the spiritual universes. Even Narada used to visit the place of Maharaja Yudhishthira, and what to speak of other celestial demigods. It is only the spiritual culture of the people concerned that makes intraplanetary travel possible, even in the present body. Maharaja Yudhishthira therefore received Vidura in the manner of reception offered to the demigods. Mahatma Vidura had already adopted the renounced order of life, and therefore he did not return to his paternal palace to enjoy some material comforts. He accepted out of his own mercy what was offered to him by Maharaja Yudhishthira, but the purpose of living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother Dhritarashtra, who was too much materially attached. Dhritarashtra lost all his state and descendants in the fight with Maharaja Yudhishthira, and still due to his sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaja Yudhishthira. On the part of Maharaja Yudhishthira, it was quite in order to maintain his uncle in a befitting manner, but acceptance of such that magnanimous hospitality by Dhritarashtra was not at all desirable. He accepted it because he thought that there was no alternative. Vidura particularly came to enlighten Dhritarashtra and to give him a lift to the higher status of spiritual cognition. It is the duty of enlightened souls to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidura came for that reason. But talks of spiritual enlightenment are so refreshing that while instructing Dhritarashtra, Vidura attracted the attention of all the members of the family, and all of them took pleasure in hearing him patiently. This is the way of spiritual realization. The messages should be heard attentively, and if spoken by a realized soul, it will act on the dormant heart of the conditioned soul. And by continuously hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self-realization. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So, one of the points that generally people talk about is, especially when it comes to studying Bhagavad Gita and all that. Firstly, ये मेरे लिए नहीं है. Okay, so people always take a call that without reading the book, they understand what is already in the book. and they take a decision also that this is not for me. Some people take that next step forward to find out what is there in the book, and that is when they come for such classes. And some people then they attend the classes just for the sake of attending it, but they never take back anything from the class. Some people take back, they apply that in their own life. But what is more important is what Vidur is doing now, is to pass on this knowledge to other ones. Yeah. It is the duty of the enlightened souls to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidur came for that reason. Now, it is fine from a story perspective. We can understand what Vidur has done, what Dhritarashtra took as his instruction. Then what did Dhritarashtra do, which will come in the subsequent verses also in the same chapter, because the title of this chapter itself is Dhritarashtra quits home, which itself signifies that Vidur has given instruction, Dhritarashtra has accepted, understood, accepted, he has actioned also, and he has quit home. Yeah, so it is understandable. But how do we apply that in our own life, right? So many of you have studied Bhagavad Gita either partially or completely. Some of them have done that completely also. Some of them are studying it, right? How many of you have attempted to actually pass on this knowledge to others? This is a question that you should answer it to yourself. You don't need to speak out right now, but this is a question you should ask and yourself and answer it yourself to yourself. How many times have you tried to speak about Bhagavad Gita to others? How many times did you actually try giving the instructions of Bhagavad Gita to people and encourage them to come and pray and worship and devote themselves to Lord Krishna? If not, this verse, based on this, you should take this as a instruction for yourself, that this is expected from you. See, one is reading Bhagavad Gita just for the sake of it. Kaam ho gaya, khatam ho gaya. Yeah, kaam karna tha, somebody told me, I've done it. The other next step is to learn, understand, and apply that in our own life, which is the objective, right? That is why Krishna spoke about Bhagavad Gita, so that you can apply. If it were to be spoken in terms of meaning some kind of movie, तो यहाँ वहां से कथा के रूप से somebody other would have spoken to us and we would have understood it, we would have taken it. But he doesn't want that. He wants the summary of these instructions to be understood by us so that we can apply that in our life. But taking it to the next level is what he expects when he says in the verse 68 and 69 of the 18th chapter. Anybody remembers what these verses are? Sushil Prabhu, Rakesh Prabhu,
Yes, sir.
Rao Prabhu, Uday Prabhu. Yaad hai? We did this in 18th
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah,
Sarva
basically,
Dharma Parijat. So abandon
That is
all the religion and surrender
no,
unto me.
no, that is the instruction, that is a personal application. That is to surrender unto the Lord. But this is the instruction 1868 and 69 given by Krishna to Arjun, which means to us also, for us to not just apply in our life, but to communicate to others. Okay, so what he says, for one who explains this supreme secret to the devotees. Okay, so people like us, we are supposed to explain this supreme secret to other devotees. Pure devotional service is guaranteed. Meaning one is the expectation of the action and the second one is the result. And at the end, he will come back to me. So when we study Bhagavad Gita, if we keep the knowledge to ourselves, at the most applying in our own life, we are doing a good service. But the excellent aspect, the excellent level of that service is to preach to others. And further in 69, he says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear, which is what we all are supposed to do. Not keep this knowledge to ourselves, but teach it to others also. And to be able to teach to others, you have to take efforts in understanding Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam to the best extent possible. And your objective is that I will apply this in my own life, for which I need to understand it very well. But I also want to understand the nitty-gritties, how these verses, what is the message, what is the internal message that Krishna is communicating, how are these verses linked to each other, and be able to explain in a manner which is understandable to others. So depending on whom you are preaching, you need to adopt a style accordingly and then preach to the people as they would understand. This requires extra efforts, and you should take all of you should take all these efforts to be able to preach to others. If you do not do that and keep it to yourself, you know that those number series, right? What is it? The way rat population increases, uh, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3. So previous number adding into the Fibonacci series, is it? I think Fibonacci, yeah. So
Yes, yes.
yeah. So the previous two numbers are added to come up with the next number, and that way the series of numbers happen. So 1 and 0, when you add, you get 1. 1 and 1 you add, get 2. 1 plus 2, 3. 2 plus 3, 5. 8, 11, 13. That way it goes on. So what happens is, every time a new member gets added, he and the previous members contribute to, distribute to increase it more and more. That is, it says that, rat population increases in this manner. But if you apply that principle in our area, when you want to preach to Krishna, when you understand, you are going to give that knowledge to someone, he is going to give that knowledge to someone, and that chain will go on. And imagine the number of people who will become knowledgeable in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, and how much pleasing it would be for Krishna. So we have to take this as what do you say, as the instruction for ourselves, and we have to apply that as well by cascading this knowledge to others. Now, what Vidur actually communicated to Dhritarashtra will come in the subsequent verses. This particular verses, or this few set of verses, is a kind of a summary of what is going to come up. So first, Vidur actually, scolds Dhritarashtra very much. He even compares him to a dog as well. Yeah, very strong word. And we will see why and how he is doing it also. And finally, he is saying that that person whom you tried to kill, which is Bhima, that person is now feeding you. You are taking his hospitality. You are no better than a dog. These are the difficult and strong words Vidur used for Dhritarashtra. And why was this required? Because Vidur had given him lot of guidance throughout the life, but Dhritarashtra never understood it. So that was the time had come that a very strongly worded message was required to be given, so that it will go inside and he will understand it, which is what Vidur did. Hare Krishna. So we can end here. Anybody has any comments, suggestions, feedback, questions?
The summary till now is this chapter is completely dedicated to Vidur, no?
Yeah.
Is it just talking about how Vidur is insulted and why he goes back?
No, that is just a part of it. The actual big point of this chapter is his instructions to Dhritarashtra, then the actions taken by Dhritarashtra around this one, and basically Dhritarashtra along with Gandhari and Kunti, all three of them, they quit home, they go and they do severe meditation and give up their bodies. Okay, so their body bursts into flames. So that is that main essence of the chapter.
That is coming towards the end, is it?
Yeah, meaning from now onwards, Vidur will start speaking to Dhritarashtra. And then Dhritarashtra will take those advice very seriously. He will quit home. In addition to this one another event is described in this chapter, that on the day that Dhritarashtra, Gandhari and Kunti quit home, that day they do it very early in the morning, even before anyone else could wake up. When Yudhishthir wakes up and he does not see his uncle and aunt around and his mother also around, he is worried. He is asking Sanjay, where did they go? My uncle never goes anywhere without telling me. How come he has gone somewhere without telling me today, and I can't even see him anywhere? So then Sanjay also told that my master, that means Dhritarashtra, has cheated me. The master never went anywhere without informing me or without taking me with him. So where is he gone? Even I also do not know. While he was thinking, the next important event of this chapter happens, that is Narad Muni appears in front of Yudhishthir. And then there is a dialogue between Narad Muni and Yudhishthir about life. And Narad Muni makes a very strong statement, and personally it is my favorite statement. So Narad Muni tells Yudhishthir that every Jivatma is actually in the strong jaws of a serpent named time. Okay. And despite he himself being in such a precarious position, he thinks that I am protecting my family. So you imagine, we are in the deepest of the ocean, we are drowning. Our family is also with us, our family is also drowning. But we still think that I will protect my family. We still think that way. And Narad Muni is highlighting that you yourself are in the jaws of the serpent. You are about to get destroyed by the serpent. And you think you are protecting your uncle and aunt? That is what Narad Muni says. That dialogue is beautiful, which is there in this chapter. So we will learn that also.
So the prelude, we discussed about Guru and the importance of the Guru in anybody's life, right?
Yeah.
That is with reference to Vidur acting as the Guru in this case,
Yeah,
right?
correct. So these first few verses were highlighting the importance of taking instructions from eligible people, which is Guru. And that is why Prabhu last week gave a good stress on the need for a Guru in our life.
I was just trying to understand
The
how
link.
did the link come.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. See you next
Hare
week.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.